Leaving Europe: How Global Evidence Changes the Earliest Cave Art Story. As we have already discussed in the episode Europe as the Timeline Anchor, Europe is often where stories about early cave painting begin. Because the evidence is plentiful, research has been long-running, and archaeologists have built an extensively developed chronology for many famous sites. But today, we shift the geographic focus. We ask a different, more global question. When we look outside Europe, what changes in the evidence for the earliest cave art? The key idea is that we are not only comparing artworks. We are comparing the evidence itself, how well it survives, how confidently it can be dated, and how securely researchers can place it into time. To start, let us briefly repeat what cave art dating usually means. Cave art is rarely dated directly. Instead of measuring the age of pigment the way we might date a container, researchers typically date mineral deposits that form over or around the artwork after the fact. Those deposits can be mineral crusts that build up on the cave wall over long periods. They can also be thin layers of calcium carbonate, often associated with speleothems, such as cave formations, that grow on top of markings. This kind of approach gives a minimum age. The art must be at least as old as the layer that accumulated after it. That matters because it shows the timeline's strength depends on assumptions. When you move beyond Europe, you are not simply changing the map location. You are often moving into different geological settings, different preservation histories, and different practical limits on what dating can reliably anchor. With that framework in mind, let's consider other regions that shape today's global conversation. Indonesia in Southeast Asia, Africa, Australia as a comparison point. Indonesia and Southeast Asia, very early wall marking claims. In parts of island Southeast Asia, caves and rock shelters can preserve pigment-based wall markings and motifs, including hand stencils. A hand stencil is created by placing a hand against a cave wall and applying pigment around it, leaving the outline after removal. Southeast Asia, particularly the island of Sulawesi, has become central to global discussions about early rock art. Multiple research projects have used dating strategies that target mineral layers formed over or around wall markings. Reported results have often been extremely early, pushing the conversation about earliest rock art evidence well beyond what many people associate with Europe. One study even reports a date of 67,800 years ago. Even so, debates persist. The reliability of very early claims can hinge on the details of mineral layering, whether the dated layers truly correspond to the time window proposed for the artwork, and whether the deposits formed in place as the method requires. There is also interpretive debate about how such early imagery connects to broader questions of human movement and cultural transmission. Still, in global terms, Southeast Asia, because it can produce very early minimum ages anchored in cave geology, has repeatedly challenged Europe-only narratives. Africa. Widespread rock art, but uneven chronological certainty. Africa is one of the most visually and culturally important places for rock art worldwide. Images and motifs occur across many regions, across long spans of time, reflecting complex artistic traditions and changing human societies. But Africa also presents a specific challenge for this episode's question. Old and confidently dated do not always coincide in the same way across the continent. In some African contexts, researchers can use strategies that provide more directly anchored chronologies. In other contexts, the best available dating approaches may be different, preservation conditions may vary, or the most plausible timelines may carry broader uncertainty. As a result, Africa has some of the oldest rock art can be true in a general cultural sense, while still masking major site-to-site differences in chronological control. So Africa often does not produce a single, clean answer for the earliest date. Instead, it provides a lesson in how archaeological timelines are constructed. The global earliest evidence question becomes uneven because the quality of chronological anchoring differs by location. Australia. Long-lived tradition depth, not just earliest dates. Australia often appears in rock art discussions, but it can be best understood through a slightly different question. Instead of focusing only on how early rock art can be proven, Australia frequently illustrates how rock art traditions can persist across very long periods. The Australian record is valuable in the global conversation because it supports the idea that once symbolic wall and rock art practices are established, they can continue and evolve across generations. Researchers often look for patterns of motif continuity alongside changes in style or depiction. Preservation conditions vary across Australian rock shelters and surfaces, and those variations affect which dating approaches can be applied effectively. But the broader theme remains relevant. Australia can complement other regions by showing how strongly wall art has shaped the idea that symbolic imagery becomes part of cultural memory, remaining embedded in social life for extended durations, and how traditions develop and persist. Bringing Europe back just for clarity. As we have learned, Europe feels dominant in many stories because it has many heavily studied caves and long-established research traditions, and the density of famous sites and the scale of ongoing dating campaigns have produced large bodies of comparable evidence. And when you step away from Europe, the evidentiary texture changes. Some regions can yield extremely old minimum ages anchored in mineral layers. Others have strong rock art records, but different chronological frameworks. In some places, there are many sites and long artistic sequences. Yet the art surfaces may be less uniformly datable in ways comparable to the most intensively studied European examples. The consequence is that the global picture often looks less like one straight line and more like a patchwork of evidence tracks. Different regions can shift the earliest claims depending on local conditions and what dating can actually anchor. Confidence varies, not only because humans may have produced art at different times, but because the archaeological record does not preserve and date uniformly.